Hey guys, and welcome back to Star Wars Nerdness. In today's episode, I will be ranking every canon Star Wars film from the worst to the best. Now, I was originally also planning on including the shows because I love stuff like The Mandalorian, but there's so many shows coming out right now that I don't want this to instantly become outdated. So probably when like bigger shows like Kenobi and Andor come out, then I'll probably do a separate ranking of the shows. And then when Rogue Squadron comes out, I'll do like an ultimate ranking of all the movies and shows. I'm sure Elijah's also going to want to do his own rankings, so consider this a part one. Coming in last place is the animated Star Wars The Clone Wars movie. I almost consider not putting this on the list because I don't want to say anything so negative about anything Star Wars, but for this one I kind of have to. I'm not going to make any videos about it going forward because of that very reason. But this is just a business move where George Lucas took these 4 episodes, canceled episodes because they were bad of the Clone Wars, and like, well, why don't we make them into a movie? He's admitted to this mistake, definitely the biggest mistake in his career. Same with Dave Filoni. The animation's bad. It looks unfinished. The acting, even from these great voice actors, is just terrible. Even the action is boring. Like even some of the movies I place lower on this list have entertaining action sequences. Even bad movies I've seen, sometimes the action is entertaining. With this one, not even the action is entertaining, as it's just stormtroopers or clone troopers in a line, standing in a line, rapid firing at battle droids who are also just standing in a line. Like there's nothing interesting about that. The plot is about Jabba the Hutt's son. Definitely nothing big screen worthy, which is easily my biggest issue with it. Like if it was just a couple forgettable episodes of the Clone Wars that just was packed into season one, I'd be much more, forgiving of it. There is still some to enjoy. Like there is this one scene that I actually really like where Anakin meets Ahsoka for the first time. It's just kind of funny because Obi-Wan clearly set it up. But yeah, overall, this is a movie I'm just not a fan of in any way. And everything on this list going forward, I actually really love. Just this movie is, in my opinion, not just a bad Star Wars movie, but a bad movie. So coming up next is Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, a movie that I actually think is a great movie when you take out the fact that it's a Star Wars movie. But of course, when you put back in the fact that it's a Star Wars movie, it ends up being very disappointing, and not just that, but very mediocre. The entire time watching it when I was a kid, I literally just said to myself, I miss Return of the Jedi. Like, that's literally what I was saying the whole movie to myself, and that's not a very good sign. This movie has a lot of potential to be great, but it, at the end of the day, forgets what made the original so special. That's having that charm, that sense of fun. This is a sci-fi series intended for children, and this just feels like a weird political thriller, if that even exists. The world building, I can appreciate them expanding on Star Wars, but it just looks kind of like all these gross CGI, weird looking creatures just walking all over the screen, which just ends up being very distracting at times. The characterization is very off. The only characters that actually have any development are very annoying, like young Anakin Skywalker and Jar Jar Binks. The storytelling is also very boring. It's just not anything. I know that I'm just not personally interested in politics, especially when there was only one line about politics in the entire original trilogy. However, there is a lot to like. I like, again, that it did expand on the world of Star Wars. I do like the pod race. We get kind of a sports element in a Star Wars movie, which is, something actually kind of interesting. And then, of course, my favorite part of the movie is everyone's favorite part of the movie, the Darth Maul versus Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon fight. It's just an amazing fight scene. But yeah, overall, this is probably the most disappointed I've been in the Star Wars franchise. But at the end of the day, well, it's still Star Wars, so I can have quite a bit of fun with it. Next up is Solo: A Star Wars Story. Now, I think this is parsecs better than The Phantom Menace. Everything else here is now my top 10 favorite movies of all time. I really, really love Solo. It is the kind of the complete opposite of The Phantom Menace. It's a very fun movie with very fun characters who give it their all. Nobody who's in this movie seems bored, and that's just awesome. It's got a lot of great fan service. It's got a lot of great action. It's just an absolute blast to watch. Maybe one of the most rewatchable Star Wars movies. So why do I have it so low? Mainly because, well, like look at Attack of the Clones, for example, which spoiler alert is next up on this list. Attack of the Clones has some absolutely terrible scenes in it that are much worse than anything from Solo, but it has some absolutely amazing scenes in it that are better than anything to come out of this movie. This movie is really fun, but also has a lot of issues and doesn't exactly reach the heights of the Star Wars franchise. My main issues with it is the droid L3 is extremely annoying. And the story relies heavily, for some strange reason, on answering absolutely every question about Han Solo, Like, I get some of these questions need answering. Like, I understand it's cool to see how he made the Kessel Run. It's cool to see how he got the Falcon, how he met Chewie and Lando. But do we need to know how he got his dice or how he got his name? Like, stuff like that is just really frustrating and definitely takes you out of the movie. But overall, it's just a very fun movie. It's a very enjoyable Star Wars movie. It's just a nice, fun adventure in the world of Star Wars. So I would definitely recommend watching this one, and I definitely want a Solo sequel. Next up on the list is Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones. Now, I know technically this should be last place, as just looking at it from a filmmaking perspective, it's technically actually a bad movie. The storytelling is pretty off. Anakin, out of all the Jedi they choose the Padawan who's not fully trained, who clearly has a crush on Padme, who's apparently supposed to be the chosen one, who's supposed to bring balance to the Force. Not very good decision making. And the love story, yes, is absolutely terrible with some of the worst lines ever. But if you really think it's the worst love story, watch Birdemic Shock and Terror. It's a much worse love story. But here's the thing. I really enjoy this movie. Like, really enjoy this movie. It's a movie that I think is very, very, very entertaining. It's a movie that I actually kind of like the visuals of. Like, I'm a really big fan of the overly cartoony visual style in this movie. I don't know why, but I just like it. And I mean, it has some really great action sequences. When you take out the love story, it's got a great subplot with Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's got a great final battle, my second favorite final battle in the whole series, with an army of Jedi. The only time in live action where an army of Jedi all went up against another army. That was amazing. Seeing Yoda with a lightsaber to me was just really cool. This is the first time I got to see Mace Windu unveil his purple lightsaber, which was awesome. Jango Fett's a great villain. There's just so much in this movie that I love, so I don't understand why literally almost everyone has this, besides the Clone Wars movie, as their least favorite live action Star Wars movie. So, I mean, I don't understand all the hate to this movie. I actually really enjoy it. After watching Phantom Menace, I was very pessimistic about this, but it reignited my excitement for watching more Star Wars stuff, which is great. I just absolutely love this movie. It has a special place in my heart. So, I can't complain about the bad stuff too much. Next up is Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith, a massive improvement over Episode 2. I love everything about this movie. It's a tragic film about a man who loses his way, becomes the monster he's sworn to destroy, and it's done so well. The emotions are done super effectively. This was the first movie ever in my life that made me cry, and hard. Like, this was just a tragic movie, and it is done so well. I cannot stress enough how much I love this movie. It is the one film of the prequels I feel like actually lives up to the original trilogy. It's got some amazing lightsaber action sequences. Of course, also it has some pretty terrible lightsaber action sequences as well. But overall, it has the best lightsaber duel in the whole series. There's just so much about this movie I love. The scene, with Anakin and Padme right before Obi-Wan comes in and the duel begins gives me goosebumps every single time. Hayden Christensen even does a good job as Anakin Skywalker, which was really surprising after Episode 2. So yeah, I just really love this movie. I love everything about this movie, or almost everything about this movie. There's obviously no movie's perfect, but there's nothing that really bothers me about this movie. So I absolutely love it. It definitely lives up to the hype of what was at the time the final film in the Skywalker saga. Next up is Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, a dark, gritty, massive scale Star Wars movie that honestly was just an incredible time. A lot of people seem to have an issue with like the first act of the movie or the first half of the movie because there's too much exposition. I really disagree. I think all of it comes together very nicely at the end to what is actually probably my favorite final battle ever in the entire Star Wars series. A lot of people seem to think the characters are underdeveloped. I really disagree. I love almost all of the characters. I think all of them are very interesting in their own ways. K2SO, in my opinion, is the funniest Star Wars character. I really like Jyn Erso and Cassian. I'm really excited for the Andor series. Like, just to see more of this universe, this take on Star Wars, I'm very, very excited to see. I just love so much about this movie. It kind of shows the flaws within the rebellion. It really goes deep into the Empire as well, and it answers one question, about the Death Star and makes it make so much sense. And there are so many emotional payoffs in this movie to all the characters. It's a very emotional Star Wars movie. It's just a masterpiece. Like, you hear people referring to this as a masterpiece a lot. They are right. Or, film is subjective. Like, they're not right, but I agree with them. So this is just a movie I absolutely love. I got to see Darth Vader on the big screen. It was just like, I mean, how can you not love it? It's like the best Darth Vader scene ever. So I absolutely love this movie. Next up is the one that started it all, Star Wars: A New Hope. Now, everything going forward, including this, is core Star Wars to me. The definition of why I love Star Wars. The Mandalorian is also included, by the way. But yeah, this movie just changed my life when I first saw it. I absolutely love everything about it. The characters are just so fun. They're so amazing to follow on this journey. We got some great, intimidating villains like Vader. The fight between the Rebellion and the Empire is instantly gripping. I love the lore of like the Force and everything. The fight between Obi-Wan and Vader. Sure, it has some issues with choreography wise, but I love what it does for the story, so I don't have any issues with it. Han Solo is a standout character in this movie for me. I just really love his character in this movie. I love all the characters in this movie. Everyone's just a standout character in this movie, which is great. My only issue is the characters, or like in terms of themes and characterization, it doesn't come close to The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. But it has less problems than Return of the Jedi. And again, like in series, it's a good thing if the first film of the series isn't as good as some of the other ones, because then that means you're getting better. Next up is Star Wars: The Last Jedi. A lot of people passionately love this movie, and a lot of people passionately hate this movie. I'm one of the people who loves it. I don't think it's the best Star Wars movie, but it's definitely one of my favorite Star Wars movies. It's very special to me. I just love the themes of failure and how you can get back up again from failure, which is, I think, a theme I needed to hear. I love what they did with Luke Skywalker. Um, I love the characterization of Rey and Kylo Ren and their bond. It's something I did not think those two having some sort of a relationship was going to work. I was a really big fan of it. That surprised me. The only issues is, of course, the subplot, which is very, very inconsequential. It doesn't really do much for Finn's character, so I'm not a fan of that. But everything else I really love about this movie, and oh my gosh, it's the most gorgeous looking Star Wars movie. I'm so glad I saw this in the theater when it came out, because oh my gosh, sitting in that packed theater and just watching that on the big screen, just seeing that in such great quality, like the visuals are so amazing in this movie. Like this deserved to like win an Oscar for like best visual effects, because oh my gosh, almost every shot from this movie I could literally have as my wallpaper. Like that's how good it is. This actually has my favorite scene in all of Star Wars, where Luke Skywalker faces down the whole First Order and Kylo Ren without harming a hair of the enemy, which is the most Jedi thing anyone could do. It's just so amazing. I might even make a video about why that scene is my favorite Star Wars scene. But yeah, I absolutely love almost everything about this movie. It's just an amazing, amazing movie. Progresses the characters like Luke, Rey, and Kylo forward very well. Phasma finally actually gets a cool fight scene. Even Poe Dameron this is, in my opinion, Poe's best movie. There's just so much great stuff about this movie that I love so much, so that's why it comes in where it does. Next up on the list is Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back, which just turned 40 years old. It's such an amazing movie. I know most people have this number one on their list, and that's great. For me, it's still just absolutely an amazing movie. It's the first movie that I saw that didn't have a happy ending, and that really surprised me, and I really admired that in the movie. This is literally a perfect movie. Just I have some personal preferences over this movie, but yeah, everything about this movie I love. I love Vader, Luke, Yoda, the relationship between Han and Leia, the droids. Lando's a nice new character. There's just so much about this movie I love. The world building, like I could just list off so much stuff I love about this movie. I actually got to see it on the big screen when it re-released for 40th anniversary. Unforgettable experience. So I absolutely love this movie. It's a really great sequel. It's actually the perfect sequel to the original Star Wars movie. It challenges what people knew about the character. It it's just such an amazing movie. So that's why it comes in where it does. Next up is Star Wars: Return of the Jedi. What was at the time my favorite Star Wars movie before, some of the newer ones came out. I just absolutely love this movie. It does feel like the climax. This was at the time supposed to be the end of the saga. I do understand teddy bears throwing rocks at stormtroopers isn't exactly all that climactic, but there's an amazing space battle, an amazing lightsaber duel that definitely makes up for it. And it just feels. I just love the theme of this movie where Darth Vader is someone who was literally unredeemable, and Luke Skywalker found the good in him and found a way to turn him to the light side. and that has just inspired me for years to look in the good or look for the good in our enemies, and this is just why Luke Skywalker is such a great character. And this movie just has so much to love in it. Um, like again, there's a reason in Phantom Menace, when watching it, I was literally saying I miss Return of the Jedi specifically because this is, for me, just the climax of Star Wars. It's just an absolutely amazing movie. It's got some amazing stuff with Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker. We finally got to see the Emperor. Just there's so much I love about this movie. Even the Ewoks I kind of like. It does drag a little bit in the first act, but it more than makes up for it in the end. Unpopular opinion, I do think this is the best of the original trilogy. So yeah, I absolutely love Return of the Jedi. Next up on the list is Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. Easily the Star Wars movie I have the most fond memories of. The first one I saw on the big screen, because I was alive when it came out. It came out, I went and saw it. Every single poster at the cinema was The Force Awakens. Inside the theater, there were so many Star Wars decorations. Like, there was this giant First Order flag. I had a blast with this movie, and I was always, when at school, was kind of, that nerdy kid who loved Star Wars. No one else seemed to really be all that into Star Wars, so I was expecting to come back to school, and no one was talking about it, and everyone was talking to me about it, and that was just amazing. My best friend was talking about Star Wars. Like, that was crazy because he'd barely ever done that before. So this movie is just so special to me, and as for the movie itself, it's just an amazing movie. It's an incredible return to the saga. Perfectly balances old and new characters, and I love the new characters. I think this is even a better introduction to the characters than A New Hope was. It just has so many, like, Finn and Rey are so developed. Kylo Ren instantly became my favorite Star Wars character. Loved seeing Han Solo again, and Leia, and the droids. BB-8's also great. Poe Dameron was a really fun character. It's just such a fun movie. It brings everything that I loved about Star Wars back. And it was just the return to that original Star Wars after like 30 years. So it was just, and it definitely lived up to the hype. It was so worth it. This is just such an amazing Star Wars movie, and I'm actually surprised it's not number one because I have so much nostalgia for this movie already. But coming up in first place is Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, my favorite movie of all time. I just absolutely love everything about this movie, and I just love where everything went. I love how the character of Kylo Ren, how his story was ended. Rey is definitely the best she's ever been. And like for the people complaining that it wasn't a great ending to the saga because it didn't wrap up plot points from the first 6 movies, well, Return of the Jedi was supposed to wrap up the plot points from the originals. Revenge of the Sith wrapped up the plot points from the prequels. So this really mainly just had to wrap up the plot points from the sequels, besides that overall, the Skywalker family and the battle between good and evil. And I think it was a beautiful ending to the sequel trilogy. It brought everything in the sequel trilogy to an amazing end. I love Finn and Poe in this movie as well. Emperor Palpatine is just amazing in this movie. I love everything, including Emperor Palpatine. I love the themes in this movie of, it's just people who defeat the Final Order. We have 1 million planet-destroying Star Destroyers, and then all these just people show up and defeat them. And that's, how far hope can go sometimes. I absolutely love that. Ben Solo is just so amazing in this movie. This is why that's my favorite Star Wars character. He's been my favorite Star Wars character even before this movie came out, but this completely defines why he's my favorite Star Wars character. I love everything that they did with this movie. My favorite scene is where, Han Solo showed up and they repeated the lines from The Force Awakens, and it was just done so beautifully. It's so emotional. Like when Han Solo says, "I know," I just absolutely love everything about this movie. It's got some amazing action sequences, and I've been growing up with the saga, since I was a little boy, and everything came to an amazing end, at least in my opinion. I love this movie so much. So yeah, that's why Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker comes in at number 1. So that is my ranking of every Star Wars movie from worst to best. Make sure to comment your ranking below. If you like the video, make sure to drop a like on the video. Subscribe to Star Wars Nerdness. We are so close to 2,000 subs. Thank you guys for all the support. And again, thank you for watching, and may the Force be with you.